Hi Lennox. Like we have said in our previous videos that videos will be dropped on the areas we've discussed that are very important in English. Remember, we tagged them the big 5 areas in English, and this moment I want to bring one of the aspects of English that is very important for candidates writing any exams in English. And this area is the comprehension and summary aspect of English. Why? Because for every exam that you're writing, either WAEC, NECO, or JAMB, there is need for you to read a passage. You see, passage reading is very important in English that candidates will be meant to answer questions on, to test your knowledge of understanding. Remember, the word comprehension itself, it means to read and be able to understand, to grasp, to be able to understand whatever you might have read and be able to answer questions on them. But for this specifically, what we are meant to do under this comprehension is based or is meant for the WAEC and NECO candidate, the whole level exams. Remember, we've discussed the areas, the things that you need to look onto before you can read and understand and be able to answer a question regarding or pertaining to a particular passage that you have or might have been given in your exams. We've discovered it. We said number one thing is for you to have what we call first reading. That is, you need to read the passage for the first time. Then after reading the passage for the first reading, you read your question. You don't answer the question immediately. Then you go for your second reading. You can click back on our previous video and check off all of these things that we've discussed. But basically, we want to check on another aspect in which we call the grammatical name. Read the passage and you've answered questions pertaining to them. A certain expression will be underlined in your passage, especially for the WAEC and the NECO candidates, in which you will be asked what is the grammatical name and function of such expressions that was underlined. So this is what we call grammatical name and function. And for you to be able to answer questions on all of these things, you need to know two things. There are two things that you need to know. You have to have a knowledge of two things, of two grammar. Like I said earlier, there are two, the phrase and the clause. Because from your expression, the underlined expression that you're given in the passage per se is what you are meant to provide the name, the grammatical name, and its function. And for you not to have the knowledge of phrase and clause, you might not be able to do that. Now, the question is, what is a phrase? Or what is the difference between a phrase and a clause? Now, go with me. A phrase is a group of words without a finite verb. Without a what? A finite verb. Even like that, there are some expressions that doesn't have a verb at all. So these expressions, if they are not having, if such an expression is not having a verb or a finite verb, it is a what? It is a phrase. But if it is having a finite verb, it is what? It is then a what? A clause. So a clause is a words or group of words. Clause is a group of words with finite verb. So a clause will have a finite verb, while a phrase will not have a finite of expressions that will have a verb, yet the verbs had or the verb is not a finite verb. For instance, dealing in hard drugs is illegal. Let's say the expression is underlined from dealing is in hard drugs. Now, we have a verb here, dealing is a continuous form of verb. But meanwhile, it is not performing a tense function in the sense that it is a gerundic verb and it is even standing as the head word for the expression. It is the noun for the expression. It is the head word of this expression or the phrasal expression. Yeah. So you look onto the verb that you have there, if there is. But if there is none, you should know that it is already a phrase. But you look onto it if it is a finite verb. Now, example of finite verb now. What is a finite verb? A finite verb, they are verbs that shows for tense or that shows numbers agreement. That is, the verb you must be having in that expression must be in either past tense or past perfect tense. For instance, let's look at this set of verbs. Kept, dealt, eaten. You discover that these three verbs, they are finite verbs. Why? Because they are in the tense form. They are in the past form of their present form. Now, these are their present form. Keep, deal, and eat. So when your verb you are having in that expression is not a finite verb, then you should know that it is a phrase. Now let's look at the types of phrase, because it doesn't end by knowing if the expression is a phrase or a clause. You need to know the types of either of the two. If you discover that it is a phrase, you need to know, is it a noun phrase? Is it an adverbial phrase? So we have three types of phrase. Now let's look at them. Types of phrase. Number one, noun phrase. Number two, adjectival phrase. Then the last one is what we call adverbial phrase. So when you have discovered that your expression is a phrase, you need to know, is it a noun phrase or is it an adverbial phrase? Basically, we don't normally have an adjectival phrase. Why? Because an adjective-headed phrase will always be a noun phrase. That is, if you have an adjective that serves as the head word in the expression, it is also a noun phrase. So basically, we'll be looking at the noun phrase and the adverbial phrase. Now let's look at them one after the other, and I'll be having some example for each of them from the past questions. Now let's look at noun phrase. Noun phrase. Now, how do you know if the expression is a noun phrase? That is, you look at the head word, the elements that are in the expression. Do you have noun elements? Is the head word a noun? So these are the questions you need to ask yourself. Now let's look at examples. Examples of noun phrase. Examples of noun phrase. And another thing you need to know, you know, from our knowledge of the part of speech, we discovered that noun, what do they do? What level of the sentence are they always occupying? The subject and the complement. Now let's look at the examples we have here. Examples of noun phrase. Examples of noun phrase that I have here. Okay. 1. I discovered that I could take care of myself. This expression is actually extracted from the WAEC question 2019, the passage given in 2019, and this is where the expression is underlined from. That I could take care of myself is, this example is actually on noun clause, not phrase. On noun clause, not phrase. Let me see the one I have here that is for noun phrase. Okay, I have one here now. Dealing with countries in Africa is more easier than in Europe. Now, this is where our expression is underlined from. This is also WAEC 2009 passage. The passage for 2009, you can check on that. So the expression that has been underlined from that passage is dealing with countries in Africa. Now, you need to, another thing you need to know is that I've told you earlier, you need to go back to the passage and discover the whole sentence of which that expression was underlined from. That is the sentence. So you need your knowledge of sentence as well in dealing with your grammatical name and function. And you need to know what we call the sentence structure. Don't forget, under your sentence structure, we have what we call XVCA. That is the subject, verb, complement, and what? An adverb. Another video will be made on sentence actually, but basically we want to discuss on phrase and clause, like what I've said earlier on. So you need to know the part of the sentence from the passage where that underlying expression was extracted for you to provide the grammatical name and function. That is, what part is the subject, what part is the verb, what part is the complement if it's act, or what part is the what is the adverb. So if you look at this expression for the passage, this is the whole expression. Dealing with countries in Africa is more easier than in Europe, and this is where the expression is underlined up to in the whole sentence. You understand me? So this is a phrase. Why? Because there is no verb at all. There is no even verb at all. Okay, we have a verb. We have a verb, but meanwhile the verb here dealing is not performing a tense verb. It is not in the tense form of its function. It is a gerundic. The function it performed here is serving as the head word to the expression. You understand me? So you need to discover if there is a verb in the expression, and if there is none, that means that it is actually what a phrase. And knowing that it's a phrase, how do you know it is a noun phrase? That is, the expression will either be in the subject or in the complement position. That brings us to the function of noun phrase. Functions. Now let's look at the function. Basically, we have two functions of noun phrase. We have two functions. Don't forget, even in your noun as a part of speech, two functions. We have it serves. Number one, it serves as the subject of the verb. So it serves as the complement of the verb. So like I said earlier on, the sentence structure of the whole sentence that the expression was extracted from, you go to the passage, you discover the whole sentence, then you look at it. Which part is the subject? Which part is the what? Is the verb. Like what we have here in the example here, dealing with countries in Nigeria is the subject. I mean in Africa is the subject. Is our verb. Is what? More easier than in Europe. This is our what? Complement. So, and if you look at the expression that is being underlined, it's in the subject level of this whole sentence. That is why you need your knowledge of sentence as well. So you go back to the passage, you discover the whole sentence of the extracted or underlined expressions, and you do what? You know if it is in the subject position. So if it is in the subject position, that shows that it is a noun phrase. And if it is having an element of noun, if you look at this expression, we have elements of nouns. We have country, we have Africa. So it shows that this is a noun phrase. Why? The elements there, they are nouns. So for you to know if it is a noun phrase, you need to know if you have a noun element in the what? In the expression. Then for you to know the function, number one, I've told us, one, it serves as the subject of the verb, the subject of the verb that will precede the, or that will precede the what? The underlying expression. If you look at this example here, what is the verb that precedes it? That is. It comes after it, after the what? After the expression. So if you want to report this now as your grammatical name, what you do is, Roman figure 1, grammatical name will be what? Noun phrase. Then Roman figure 2, it serves as the subject of the verb. What is that verb? Is. You caught it. Is. So you've done everything that you have to do under grammatical name in that expression. So we're still going to look on adverbial phrase.